I welcome you all to this show. I know a lot of action you guys are going to have today. This is probably the second session you guys are having, so probably woken up from your sleep and ready for some fun. 3 things I wanted to call out before I start the show. The first one is Ian and the Joe back there, the whole production team. They're doing a fantastic job. So I really wanted to thank them for doing a great job, guys. It's an awesome orchestra they play. The second one, the BJ, who's the makeup artist. The first time in my life, somebody used the brush on my face. You can see the difference, right? It was fantastic. The experience is awesome, guys. So you should, I really want to thank her for doing that. And the third one is my marketing team wanted to say this. I'm going to say this for all of you. Yesterday, we announced a big strategic partnership with Shopify, Cognizant, and Google. So we are going to bring all the 3 teams together and hopefully deliver a better customer experience together as we move through this journey. So you guys want to go to our booth 10:30, I think? Yes, Cognizant booth 10:30. Know all about this partnership, and hopefully you can learn a thing from that partnership. So with that, I would like to welcome on stage Mr. Matt Rasmussen from HEB and Naveen Sharma from Cognizant. Welcome them, please.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you guys for joining. So before we start the show, I was going to tell these guys that I'm going to be a moderator for this discussion, but more like an instigator. So I really want this thing to be really fun so that this team here, they're like almost 300 people, they can take a thing or two, maybe some nuggets from this discussion. So I really want this to be a very engaging conversation, guys. So thank you for joining us. Matt, why don't you start by introducing yourself and talk a little bit about what you do in HEB?
Absolutely. Thank you, Vivek. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Matt Rasmussen, and I am the leader of enterprise engineering for HEB. What that is basically is the easiest way to think about it is all the systems that HEB needs to put a can of corn on the shelf so that you can go into the store and buy it. And that includes everything from our manufacturing plants, our warehousing and transportation, our pharmacy and clinics, all of our store systems, and then all of our core business.
So wait a minute, Matt. I don't know if everybody in the room knows about HEB. I don't know, maybe a raise of hands?
Yeah, who here knows about HEB? Who here that, I see some of my my HEB partners here as well. Who here that doesn't work at HEB knows about HEB? All right, we got a pretty good group. I'm very much looking forward to talking about HEB a little bit, not just the technology that we're doing, but the culture as well. And I actually have something to give you guys a taste of what HEB looks like.
Awesome. Let's roll it.
At HEB, we're proud to offer over 6,000 products grown, harvested, or made by our fellow Texans.
Well, I rode up into Austin, the cradle of the West. Just ask any cowboy, he'll tell you it's the best. Met a Texas beauty, I got friendly with her pa. I looked into her big blue eyes, and this is what I saw. I saw miles and miles of Texas, all the stars up in the sky. I saw miles and miles of Texas.
We source locally from all over the Lone Star State, from the coast to the valley, the hill country to your own backyard. It's all part of our commitment to preserving the future of Texas and supporting our Texas neighbors. Learn more about our sustainability efforts at ourtexasourfuture.com.
All right, this is awesome. So I'll start teasing off, right? So there are 430 stores of HEB, only in Texas, and some of them in Mexico. This is a $43 billion organization, privately owned, top 5 US privately owned company, and for 3 years in a row, #1 on customer satisfaction won all the grocery retailers in US. This is absolutely fantastic, guys. Why don't you start by telling what's the recipe of success for HEB, the history behind it, and what's really driving them with such a great momentum?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk a little bit first about just who HEB is as an organization and what I think really makes HEB special. So at the foundation of HEB, the mission is fairly straightforward. It's the idea that you as an organization, when you contribute to the community that you operate in, you make everything about that community better. You make the lives of everyone in it better, you make better jobs, you make sure that the children have better educations. It's an important cycle. And as they grow up and they have better opportunities, they then have the opportunity to come back and contribute to your organization as well as the rest of the community itself. And the idea that they can come in, contribute, and help make your organization better, then completes the cycle of you're able to contribute all of the benefits that you have back into the community. And that is the foundation of HEB. It's the belief that everyone is there to contribute back to the communities that we live in and that we work in. And you'll find any HEB partner that you talk to, that really is a fundamental piece of the culture and a fundamental part of who they are and why they get up every morning and come to work. And it's very empowering knowing that the person that you stand next to and you're working with, you're aligned on why you're doing this and why you get up every morning.
Right.
And we all have these disagreements. It's not a paradise. We work through all the problems that we have, but this foundation is what creates the culture and has really made something.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. So Dallas, I mean, some of us have a complaint about how HEB is, putting their stores. So Dallas, after many, many years, started opening HEB stores, right? Every time I go to San Antonio or Houston, I see all the stores. So last 4 or 5 years, we have got 4 stores in Dallas. The 5th one is coming up, but nothing outside Texas. So why this, little bit of a close-knit community, and why don't we explore something beyond Texas? Is there a strategy behind it, or is there a, plan of expanding? What's your thought?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is, if you've never been to Texas, it's a big place.
Yes.
If you ever have anyone from Europe visit you, and if you're in San Antonio or Houston, and say, hey, let's go to El Paso, or let's drive to Lubbock. And you go, well, okay, it's going to be about 11 hours to get there. And they're like, what? Texas is a very large place. Right. And if you just look at Texas as its own economy, it's a huge economy. There's so much opportunity in Texas and so much opportunity for growth and contributing just in those communities that we're going to be there for a long time. And it will allow the continued growth of HEB as well. So
awesome.
It's the communities we live in, it's the communities that HEB was founded in. It's the ones we're going to be in for a while now.
Right. So let's talk about technology a bit, right? Obviously, success of HEB in the many, many years is also dependent on how well the technology is integrated with their business goals, right? How do you see your organization playing a role into what HEB is really trying to achieve, especially the #1 customer satisfaction, which is the primary goal of HEB? How do you see the technology playing a big role, and how do you see the shift happening from that perspective in the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, so if you've been paying to any attention at all what's been going on in retail, the amount of technology that's going into retail at this point is pretty staggering. Right. Obviously, retail technology is a huge strategy for HEB at this point, not only for the customer experience, so how you actually interact with your customers, be it through the internet, through curbside, through home delivery, or in the store itself. Technology is playing a role in every single one of those things. Right. Whether it's the things that you see, whereas you're actually picking up your groceries, or is it when you walk into the store, what's the assortment that you see? What is the selection? How is that curated for you? How are you being serviced? What are all the amenities available in the store? All of these are technology related, especially around personalization as well, and making it feel like this journey to the grocery store was about you and not everyone else in the store.
Absolutely. So, Naveen, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just coming to you.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. So, what do you think from your perspective? Can you bring some outside-in perspective from industry side as to how technology, in your case, a little bit of data and analytics is starting? Obviously, that has been there forever. But how do you see that playing into what HB's vision is? Obviously, Matt talked about what HEB stands for. How do you see that really playing out from your perspective?
I'm going to go back to what you said. I think that was interesting, right? You spoke about making a difference for the community, and then you spoke about how HEB leads in customer satisfaction.
Right.
I think technology at its fundamental level, does two things, right? It reduces friction, so obviously, makes things go better, and then it creates joy, right? Those moments of joy where you walk into a store and the things that you're looking for are there, and that store selection is somewhat geared towards that region. Those are all examples of how technology works in retail. But I think technology also becomes a competitive edge, right? If you're going to go to a store that still has product assortments from the previous season, or ran out of Stanley Cups, or whatever the new TikTok fad is, you're going to remember that.
Right.
That's going to influence the next time you go in. That's also going to work for the employees or the partners in your stores, right? Because for those folks as well, it's important to come in and know that they're able to give their best, and their best only happens when all of this stuff that happens behind the scenes is taken care of. I think those are areas where technology comes in and helps you not only just show up, but show up right and show up in a way that people remember what you want them to remember you for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that personalization thing is very interesting because there's a fine line between personalization and joy and creepy. Right, and the idea that this organization knows maybe a little bit too much than they should, and finding that balance, that's something that HEB finds very important, is also the privacy side of the customers, and making it feel like we're not taking anything that you don't want to give.
Absolutely. I think we all read, it's been 4 or 5 years, but super large retailer, young girl walks in, and they're able to predict before her family knows that before her family knows that she's pregnant. And they're doing that by piecing together the things that she's looking at, the products that she's buying.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that, you're right. There's a fine line between knowing your customer, creating that moment of joy and good surprise, and then crossing over that invisible line to creepy and obnoxious. So yes, it's finding the balance.
I want to change this a little bit in terms of the discussion points. Innovation, which is HEB is known for in a big way. When we as a family go to the store, it's almost like an experience. We spend almost around 2 hours in HEB store with 4 of us, and all 4 of us are going in different directions because we know everybody has got something to buy. I buy 3 bottles of fresh orange juice. That is a must for me from HEB because that I really love. So that's a unique experience you guys have created. So innovation continues to be a theme as you evolve through this journey. Now, tell me a little bit more about how you drive innovation within the organization, especially in your IT world. Yeah. And to top it, how does a partner like Cognizant, we have been your partners for almost 17, 18 years, working closely with you. How does a partner like Cognizant can help you bring more innovation from that perspective? And I'll probably follow up, Naveen, with you on the similar thoughts. But please, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So innovation is something that we talk about fairly regularly, and it's interesting in the sense that I'll talk about innovation in a couple ways. You certainly don't sit down with your team and point at them and go, okay, innovate. I guess you could do that. It's typically not very effective. But innovation, oftentimes when we say innovation, you think about things like camera vision. Like, do we have cameras on the shelves and we can see inventory? You think about frictionless checkout. I mean, you don't have a cashier, you just walk out. Those are innovation. But in reality, there's a ton of things that are happening behind the scenes of teams that are supporting major enterprise systems, manufacturing systems, warehousing and transportation systems, where we're innovating all the time. Innovating to me is we're doing something new in a way that has not been thought of before that significantly achieves one of the goals for the business.
Sure.
And that doesn't just mean that we bring in some new technology and pilot it. And Cognizant has been a wonderful partner in building several of our key enterprise systems from scratch, custom. Awesome. And one of the joys that we bring to our customers is that very customized feeling. HEB operates in a certain way, it feels a certain way. And the way we achieve that is there are certain key systems that we build on our own. They're built to HEB specifications and how we want it to operate, and Cognizant has directly helped us build several of those major systems.
Awesome, thank you for the validation, Matt. Naveen, from your perspective, what do you think your organization should be doing with HEB-like company to bring more innovation, thought leadership? What's the magic thing that can happen or should happen from your perspective where they can be floored by, wow, I really love what you guys are bringing to the table from innovation perspective. So
yeah, so
we can bring it
I think you set up innovation really well. And innovation is, it is a way of doing things, right? There's a certain amount of cultural aspect to it. And there's enablers, right? So we as leaders everyone that's here, you sort of enable that, you trigger it, you set the right incentives in place for your teams to think about doing things differently. Right. I think that's important. Setting that up is important. To the question you asked, Vivek, about how do we bring it to HEB, I think we have a unique or a good vantage point. You know, the fact that we go across industries helps. Innovation is, to what Matt said, right? It's doing something differently. It's bringing in an element of new. It's bringing in ideas that haven't been implemented before. So our vantage point allows us to look at what is working in other industries. Those are proof points. That we then bring in and say, look, it worked for industry X over here, or company Y, and here's the benefits, and here's why you can deploy them. So I think that's a very real way of deploying that innovation into our client world. The thought leadership aspect is also interesting, right? So thought leadership by itself, it can become very academic, and you don't necessarily get a lot of value. I mean, you can, the world we live in, you could absorb knowledge from anyone. So the value I think we provide is the context, the awareness of your systems, your drivers. What is it that you're looking to do? And how do we align the things that are happening in the technology industry, prioritize them, filter out the ones that are interesting but not impactful, and then bring you the ones that we think are going to be meaningful. That's sort of the rubric in my mind in terms of how we filter out what we bring into these conversations.
Absolutely. So I want to change this a little bit in a different direction, right? So you have obviously been working on modernization, your applications over a period of time, Matt. Obviously we have been party to that whole journey that you have taken. Your mainframe modernization program is going for last 3-4 years. You have chosen a partner like Google, and I'll let you talk about it, through this journey. I want to set this up from your perspective as to what went in your mind as you were looking through and choosing a hyperscaler for your journey, and also the fact that you are still maybe 30-40% done, and you have still a long way to go, which means you are going through a 5-6 years of journey or maybe more to achieve a nirvana stage where mainframe is all gone. You have gone to a Google in a big way. What is going on there, right? I really want audience, and some of these guys I was talking yesterday are interested in knowing what's the right duration in which you can take this journey. Do you take baby steps? Do you go all out? But please, we want to hear a little bit from you as to what you are going through in HEB and what's the right way of addressing it, right?
Yeah, so what is the plan around modernization for HEB systems and HEB retirement?
All right.
I feel like I'm in a staff meeting. So I was literally asked this question by my boss. I think everyone knows that a big bang is not an approach you could take with the mainframe. In most cases, the mainframe, and HEB is not special in this, is running most of your financial systems and the financials for the company. So airplane is in flight and you want to rebuild it while it's flying. You probably don't want to rebuild the entire airplane at the same time. When we were looking at hyperscalers, HEB was definitely on a modernization journey. They called it digital transformation then, but that's not a buzzword anymore, so we don't call that anymore. And we were looking for someone to help us understand what does that really mean. Because when you say something about like mainframe retirement, you're talking about much more than just changing a system, right? You're talking about changing how your company operates. You're talking about changing the processes that your employees come to and work every day. You're talking about re-envisioning the goals of the technology in your company. And that's a bigger conversation than turning a mainframe off. And I think that was one of the things that we could have definitely done better, which is sat down with the business, sat down with the users and say, we have this goal of retiring our mainframe, but let's actually talk about what you really want out of this and what you think the vision of this is going to be once we turn this thing off. Because it's much easier to start having the conversations of, okay, where's the data? What are the applications? Let's organize all this stuff. Let's start building project plans. Yeah, that's the easy thing. You're skipping the hard part if you start there. And in this journey, we were interested in some technology partners that could help us through it. So Google really stepped up for us. They really came in. They spent a lot of time, and they've been a fantastic partner, not just in the technology aspect, but also the vision and design and approach aspect. And they've really helped us through that journey. we've continued to use them largely for that reason. I mean, the technology has been a fantastic platform, but that partnership and the understanding of why you apply it when. And what situations should you be applying it, that has been the real gold out of the relationship.
So I'll put it out there. Google obviously interested in the commit that you promised with them, right? So are you able to meet the commit, or are you delaying it in a way that it's going to become maybe another 4-year journey? What's happening there in terms of how you're utilizing Google as a partner?
So our expansion has actually been quite a bit.
Yeah.
We have quite a few new custom systems that are currently running on Google Cloud. We're modernizing all of our pharmacy fulfillment, and that's actually moving to the cloud as well.
Nice.
All of our back-end procurement systems, many of this stuff is moved to the cloud, and we're well into this journey. While we have more plans, this is a giant machine that you're trying to move, so it's hard to commit on exact dates, but it's moving at the speed that we want it to move.
No, I mean, we have been party to this, and we know your thought process. Naveen, anything which you don't agree to or you concur as to the approach which Matt
I'm going to start asking him questions. I'm fascinated by what you said. So what's been the hardest thing? What's been the thing that you knew it wasn't going to be easy, but you were surprised by how long or how hard it was to get it going?
So probably one of the hardest parts is, and you've experienced this in any kind of upgrading of systems, is everyone is very busy with what they're currently doing. There's a clear agenda on what the organization's goals are, right? And that we typically call that new features.
Yeah.
So everyone's busy, you have a long list of new features, and then you step in and say, oh, by the way, I need you to re-envision how you're going to be working in the next 5 to 10 years. And that basically means every system that you use, every employee in your organization is going to change somehow, because there's really nowhere that technology isn't involved at this point. It's going to change. So what does that mean for you? And by the way, I'm going to turn off all your procurement systems, and you need to figure this out in the next 5 years. So that conversation it's not something we would put on anyone by themselves. It's a group conversation. It's a technology, business, product, design conversation. All these pieces come together. But that by far, building those roadmaps, getting a good understanding of what that means, because there's a propensity for us to say, well, I am the leader of this organization. I need that vision, and it needs to be right. And you aren't going to get it right. We basically need to know where we're going, and then we need to sit down again and say, are we still on track? Is this going where we want it to go? Right. And in general, there's many organizations that struggle with that idea of, well, you said the plan is going to be 3 years, and it's not 3 years anymore. I said, well, because we're not even building that thing that we thought we would be at the end of 3 years. And explaining that to leadership is a difficult conversation.
It's interesting. I'm thinking back to what you said, right? Rebuilding the plane while you're flying it. Everyone uses that, but there's 2 things I took away from that last piece. You will have people that are focused on flying the airplane. Those are not the people that you want rebuilding the engine while they're operating it. And then to go back to that same metaphor, much like pilots and navigators will always keep assessing where they are on their flight path. You have a flight plan, but that plan is not 100%. It's not set in stone. You will obviously change altitude and direction and whatever else in real time. So making that adjustment in real time, I think having that be understood up front, those are things that I guess are key.
It's that very difficult conversation. The Henry Ford thing of if I ask them what they wanted, they say a faster horse. Yeah. Versus we're not going to stop selling groceries, right? So we still need to do what we've been doing, but there's also pieces that get re-envisioned along the way.
And I think that's the thing that we've also found. You can build a 3-year plan, but if there's one thing I can guarantee, it's by the time you get to the end of year 1 or year 2,
you got to relook
your initial goals will have changed. The technology that's available will have changed. Your leadership may have changed.
And the business priorities are changing.
Everything changes, right? So building in that fluidity is important. Sort of acknowledging that a plan's good, a plan's needed, but expecting that plan to be there. It's easy, right, as a leader to get those plans printed and plastered on the walls in the office, and you go like everyone aligned to that plan. Yeah, that's needed, but then you got to plan for updating the plan.
And I think something that is actually important that we have done at HEB, I think is critical to the strategy as well, is the mainframe is a very interesting, unique example. So I will challenge anybody in the room, what piece of technology do you have that's 35 years old or 40 years old or longer that you still use today and is a critical part of what you use today?
Right.
And it's not even your iPhone. They aren't even that old if you've kept the original. And that is unique amongst technology platforms. I don't know if everyone's familiar with the platforms. It's probably my boss.
He's hearing it, yeah.
Yeah. A platform that has generated that much stability for those many years is definitely unique today. And that is a strategy we want to follow as well. So if I'm rebuilding the foundation of our data, of our core systems, of our purchasing systems, I can't tell leadership either, well, we got to rebuild all this in 10 years.
Yep.
Yeah.
I need to build a foundation that's going to be there in 10, 20, maybe more.
Get it right the
And
first
that's
time.
got to be a critical part of the strategy. It can't be, yeah, there's a bunch of churn, and your foundational technology parts are just going to be part of that churn. That's not tenable. So what is the strategy to make sure that you have that foundation, and then you have the layers that are more
yeah.
changeable on top?
And
Good.
you're the moderator. I did not forget that.
Yeah.
But
I want to-
it's interesting, right? So when they launched whenever the mainframe made its way into modern businesses with the impact it did, I don't know that it was positioned as this will be around for the next 30, 40, 50 years, but it ended up being there.
Yep.
And now we've come to the other end of the spectrum where we know technology is moving fast enough. So somewhere in our minds, our awareness, we don't plan for that 30 or 40 year horizon. We've started to make it a little bit more malleable, a little bit more fungible, flexible, whatever the word is. And yet we find it harder to get these things going. So I find that
Yes.
I find that very interesting. Back to you, sir.
Thank you. So,
I'm sorry.
great discussion. We will open up for questions at the end, 5 minutes. I'm sure there are people who want to ask counter questions to you about your strategy. But I'll spend maybe the next 7, 8 minutes on the hottest topic in everybody's mind, that is Gen AI. The last point which I said is to be or not to be. So Matt, I know you missed the keynote session yesterday, but everything on that keynote session was all about Gen AI. The kind of agents, 7 or 8 agents were shown there, and every agent had a very unique way of tackling their business problems through the Gen AI, which was almost made real for all of us, right? There were live examples that were thrown. Google is obviously leading that pack from that perspective. Idea is every organization today, in one way or another, is adapting to it, thinking about it, done the POCs, almost ready to get the benefit. In some cases, maybe it's already achieved. Now, everybody is feeling this. They all want to be part of it, but should we really jump into it? Can Gen AI be the Gen AI first strategy for the organization, like cloud first? Or should we wait and watch and really let it all sink in, right? And that's the positioning most of us are here today. So now from your perspective, and I really want this to be both of you talking to each other to figure out or give the audience a sense of where this is leading into from industry perspective. And Matt, I'll start with you. From your perspective, how you're tackling this big elephant which everybody is really wanting to invite to their houses, but don't know how.
Absolutely. I mean, so I'll just generally say what I think is everyone has said. Gen AI is going to be part of everything we do at some point.
Right.
We're going to view Gen AI like search, right? We don't really talk about search that much anymore. It's just going to be embedded in certain areas of what we do. When will that be and what will that be? I think it's somewhat unclear at this point. There's a couple sticking points. The first is obviously legal. There are going to be some legal questions about what is being generated, and I think some of those discussions are still coming. The other piece is just general accuracy. And this is something interesting. If you've ever, any computerized system, if you've ever introduced it to someone that's never used a computerized system, if it's 99% right, but that 1% of the time, the first time it's wrong, they'll go, this thing is just, what is this? It's giving
Wait till it gets 100% right.
Get rid of this thing. And I think Gen AI is going to be viewed that way for a while. It'll be trusted by your business users in a business context, which is different than a consumer context, right? When you're there trying to do your job and it's wrong, I think it's going to be viewed very harshly more than it probably should be, just like any new technology that you introduce. Right. Is it going to be part of our strategy? Yes. Do I think we have a ton of capabilities in existing systems today that we could be leveraging even better? Yes. So there's a combination of things that we're doing. Are we going to be totally focusing on Gen AI? No. Will be part of the portfolio? Yes. But we have many opportunities where just the systems we have, we can make them work better than they work today.
That makes sense. I know you wanted us to get into
yes,
to
please.
be or not to be, right? So look, I don't know that there's a choice here. This is, I mean, you could choose to bury your head under a rock, but that's, I would not advise anyone of that as an idea. So I think this is one of those things. Look, we're all going to have to adapt to it. It's going to come into our businesses, into our lives. You obviously have to be smart about how you introduce it, where you use it. I think that point stands. But it's also, I'm not sure I would commit to Gen AI first, right? We're all here because we're responsible for parts of our business or technology or a certain outcome. So I think remaining focused on the outcome is important. This is an enabler. This is a tool to help you get to that outcome. It can sometimes speed up things. It can sometimes act as a assistant that you never had. It can sometimes take cost out. It can go back to introducing those moments of joy. So I think all of those are things that it can do. But it's not something you can or should ignore. So it's one of those. Even if you use it for little things, you know, I'll talk about my own team. When we first started, before the enterprise use cases came up, I think this is going back to November of 2022, my own team started to use ChatGPT to write the funniest out-of-office messages. They competed on who could come up with the weirdest out-of-office message generated by ChatGPT. That's obviously not an enterprise use case.
Absolutely.
But the point is, you know, you have to start playing with it. So you get familiar. And then once you get familiar, then you start to think of what are the other things you can deploy this into? Where else can you realize value out of it? I think that part is non-negotiable in my mind. You have to do that. Don't ignore it, because if you ignore it, you're sort of handicapping yourself. So that's the way I
No, absolutely. So I guess the debate continues on that one. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, gentlemen, for such engaging discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it.